Hi, everyone. We just made it through another anniversary of the crazy actions that happened on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol. And this year, the White House decided to put up a webpage that has an incredibly different narrative than what was told in legal proceedings and what was told in hearings where people were sworn to tell the truth. And I think it's a perfect example when you have the United States government website saying one thing, and you have conservative appointed judges saying things like, this cannot be normal. What are we, the everyday Americans, supposed to make of this? Why is that important? And mostly, what can we do about it moving forward? That's what this video is all about. So why is it important? It's important because people in general assume that government websites remain at least relatively, if not entirely, neutral. It's where we're supposed to get data. It's where we're supposed to have a single source of truth. But governments, any government, can publish selective or misleading narratives. It happens more and more often nowadays. So today's video is going to dive deep and give you, in a few short minutes, a really, really simple framework of how to start fact-checking for yourself, how to not rely on media narratives, how to not rely on the overall vibes. What's this simple framework so that you can come up to your own conclusions that's actually founded in evidence? I'll give you the simple framework. We'll use the January 6th website to walk through the framework, and we'll dive even a little bit deeper in this video so you can see where it's going. And then we'll kind of rapid fire a whole bunch of assertions made on the website using this framework right at the end, but I'll leave the conclusions up to you. That's what this channel is all about, empowering people with the tools to be the sort of people who are going to make the sort of change we all need happen in this country if we want to be better than what we're doing right now as a country. So let's dive into it. The framework is really simple. We'll start with that and we'll layer in the facts. So the framework is this: really identify the claim. Then you go look for the evidence. Then you try to add the context that is necessary to understand and build a conclusion that you can feel comfortable with. Those are the 4 steps: claims, evidence, context, conclusion. That's the framework. That's all you need to remember. And now let's apply that to this White House website of January 6th. The overall claim, and I'll get to some of this more selective claims at the end of the video, but the overall claim is really more focused on their exact claim. They being whoever the speaker is, whoever published the website, whatever the entity is that is putting this out there. And it's important to isolate that claim, because if you don't, then it's really easy to get lost in the trap of the overall vibes, what feels good. And as one of my drill sergeants used to say, what feels good is probably wrong. And so this is how we keep ourselves honest about trying to find the exact claim. So let's take one of these claims. The White House claims that nearly 1,600 patriotic Americans were peaceful protesters, or at the most, mere trespassers. That's essentially what they're trying to say here. So step 2, let's find the evidence. Let's go to primary sources. Primary sources for a claim like this could be things like court records. Why are court records important? Because court records have rules, and they have penalties if people break those rules. So you have to, or you're much more likely to have people involved in court actions telling the truth or having evidence that backs up what they're claiming. You can look at court records, you can look at sworn statements, you can look at what the judges are saying, you can look at official timelines, you can look at bipartisan reports, of which there are many. These are often the gold standard. If you can get both parties in DC who fight each other all the time to agree on some findings, that's usually a good sign of something you want to pay attention to. And so in this example, let's just use a couple judge quotes. Judge Royce Lamberth, who's a Reagan appointee. And by the way, for the most part, it really shouldn't matter who appointed a judge. In recent years, that is becoming a little bit more of a litmus test. But the reason why I'm going to show you or share with you some conservative appointee judges is because you would think if they do have a bias, it should be in favor of the conservative movement, not against it. So that makes it a little bit more punchy. So Judge Royce Lamberth said the January 6th riot was not civil disobedience. It was corrosive, selfish, not patriotic. Lamberth, again, this cannot be normal. We as a society cannot normalize the events of January 6th. Take that back to the claim. The claim was these are just mere peaceful protesters, maybe trespassers at the very most. But you have judges who are looking at evidence, looking at sworn statements, who are coming to these conclusions. So now let's compare the claim versus the evidence. You put them right side by side. The claim on one hand is that you have 1,600 patriotic Americans that were just peacefully protesting, merely trespassing at the most. On the other hand, not only do you have judges, and you can go and find a whole lot more quotes of different judges about January 6th. There were over 60 court cases. We'll get to them here in a minute. There's also hundreds of people who have admitted under oath to assaulting police, breaking windows, obstructing Congress. Judges have called this political. That's what I mean by evidence. When people admit that they did these things, that is in direct contradiction to the claim that was being made. If that isn't enough, and sometimes it is, you don't necessarily have to go farther, but let's keep going. Check for the missing context. You see, most misleading narratives aren't built on outright lies. They're built on what's omitted from the truth. And so in this example, you have another claim. Pelosi admitted responsibility for catastrophic security failures. She's right at the top of the website. Here's the context. Pelosi, as Speaker of the House, was reacting in real time, expressing frustration. She does not control the National Guard. You have bipartisan Senate reports that found multiple agency failures, not a Pelosi-specific refusal. And you can bet if there was a Pelosi-specific refusal, the Republicans in the United States Senate would have definitely put that in their reports. So the context doesn't excuse mistakes, but what it does do is prevent false assignments of blame. All I'm trying to say there is Pelosi could have done things better. We all could do things better in the moment when we're looking back at it years and years later. But the extra context allows you to figure out who's really at fault and how much is that important to the actual claim being raised, and how much of the evidence do you see and the context you have support that claim. That's how you arrive at a conclusion you can feel confident in. Now, here's where we're going to go just a little bit deeper. And stay with me till the end. I'm going to rapid fire a few of these examples directly from this webpage. But there's also tricks of the trade. There's rhetorical devices. One that you could look for that comes up all the time is called the narrative reversal. This is one of the most common disinformation techniques, and it's all about flipping the script. So the White House claim, the real insurrection was the election certification. Primary evidence, 61 out of 62 post-election lawsuits failed. They could not get the evidence that they needed when there were actual rules applied, when they were outside their own vibe cycle. Trump's own Attorney General, Bill Barr, said that there was no fraud that could have changed the outcome. Trump's own CISA, who is responsible for helping secure the election, called the 2020 the most secure election in U.S. history. When the evidence points all in one direction and the narrative points the exact opposite direction, that's the narrative reversal. Unfortunately, in today's world of social media, it's all too common and it can be really powerful, but it's a tall tale sign. And that's why we go through these frameworks: the claim, the evidence, the context, then you have your conclusion. You can also evaluate the pattern. See, fact checking isn't just about every individual fact that you have to go check. It's really about spotting the overall pattern. So pattern in this case could be, it starts with a kernel of truth. There were security failures. They did exist. I'm not trying to say they didn't. And then you strip away the context. Then you reverse the causality. Then you reassign blame. Then you reclass the perpetrators as the victims. Here's a quote reinforcing this entire idea. Quote, "I've been dismayed to the distortions and outright falsehoods seep into public consciousness." It's from a United States judge. Finally, you can talk about your conclusions, your evidence-based with context conclusions. See, your conclusion should follow the evidence, not your politics. Here's a case study conclusion for this website. The White House January 6th page used selective facts, omissions, and disproven claims to construct a narrative that contradicts court records, sworn statements, and bipartisan findings. And you can go check me on that. You can go check the evidence of what I just said. You can go check the context of what I just said and make up your own mind. So why is this dangerous when the government is intentionally trying to rewrite a violent attack on its own institutions as patriotism? It's not just spin, it's a warning sign. Why it matters. Democracies depend on us having a shared set of reality, a set of shared facts. When official channels promote narratives that contradicts legal record, it erodes trust over time. And it normalizes political violence, which we're seeing happen all over our country more and more often. It signals to future actors that force is acceptable as a political tool. We're also seeing that all over our country. It fractures the public's ability to agree on what is actually real. When we go back to the top of this video and you hear a judge say, this cannot be normal. This really can't be normal. And that's why fact checking isn't optional anymore. You see, it's really a civic skill. It's how we protect the future from mistakes that we're making right now, every day. And I hope that you'll share this video with people that you think could benefit from just the idea that your conclusion should really be based on evidence and context, not on your politics. And if you want to see me dive deep into how to do more fact checking I'll have a couple of videos planned on that over the next couple of weeks, but if you want to do a true deep dive, just let me know in the comments below and I'll be happy to do that. And as promised, here's a rapid fire set from this website so you can see how this plays out a little bit. And this isn't comprehensive. You don't need to find every single piece of evidence, every single piece of context. But just as an example, claim nearly 1,600 patriotic Americans were peaceful protesters or mere trespassers. Primary evidence. Judges, including conservatives, repeatedly described the events as violent. Missing context. Hundreds of defendants admitted under oath themselves of what they did was assaulting police, using chemical spray, and obstructing Congress. I'll let you make your own conclusion. Next claim. There was no evidence of armed rebellion. Primary evidence. Rioters carried weapons. We saw it on videos. Proud Boys and Oath Keepers leaders were convicted of seditious conspiracy. It required intent to use force against government authority. Missing context. Quote unquote armed rebellion is a legal term. Courts found intent to obstruct a peaceful transfer of power. I'll let you make your own conclusion based off of that. Claim. Trump offered 10,000 National Guard troops to protect the Capitol and Pelosi rejected them. Primary evidence. There are no written orders. They don't exist. Trump's own acting defense secretary testified that no such orders were issued. Missing context. The Speaker of the House does not control the National Guard. Bipartisan Senate reports found that there was multiple agencies' failures, not a Pelosi refusal. I'll let you make your own conclusion. Claim. Pelosi admitted responsibility for catastrophic security failures. Evidence. Pelosi expressed frustration during the attack, saying, quote, we have totally failed, unquote. That was reacting in real time. Missing context. She isn't responsible. Deployment. Capitol Police Board and federal agencies handle that. Claim. January 6 defendants were political hostages, denied due process. Primary evidence. All defendants had counsel, hearings, plea deals, trials, appeals. Judges rejected the hostage narrative through and through. That's why it took so long. Missing context. Some detention conditions were harsh, but consistent with federal pretrial practices. Claim. The Select Committee fabricated evidence. Primary evidence. The committee's report and transcripts were archived. Findings align with sworn testimony from the DOJ cases. Testimony that were offered under penalty of perjury. Missing context. Presentation style fabrication. Disputes over redactions are normal in congressional investigations. I'll say that again because I think I jumbled up some of the words. But when you take a whole bunch of investigations that are very, very detailed and put it out to the public, redactions throughout part of that are totally normal. Yet the White House is pointing to them as part of the evidence for why they're claiming that it was made up. It wasn't made up, but I'll let you make your own conclusion. Finally, the real insurrection was the election certification evidence. 61 out of 62 cases failed. Trump's own attorney general said that there was no fraud that would have changed the outcome. Missing context. Calling certification insurrection is completely a rhetorical inversion. It's not a legal or factual claim. I'll let you make your own conclusion. Again, fact checking is no longer optional. It is part of being a United States citizen. I wish it didn't have to be this way, but I want to teach people these skills so that they can make up their own mind. That it isn't just about vibes and what feels good. It's about where the evidence actually leads. That's part of how we're going to get out of the mess that we're in now. And you can be part of that change. Thank you. If you haven't yet, please click like on this video, drop a comment below, and click that subscribe button. It'll help the YouTube algorithm make sure that these videos are getting into your feed. Thank you.